Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hi everyone, welcome to another weekly wrap up, and I'm so excited to talk to you about the books that I read this last week. There aren't a ton of them, but all of them were new and or are upcoming releases. I actually think they're all ones that are out now. Maybe one of them is still coming. But it was really a week of trying to buckle down and get some arcs out of the way, as well as I will also tell you about at the end of the new ones, like what I'm currently reading, because the two books I'm currently reading are pretty big and they're kind of why I haven't finished more than I did. But it is an absolutely positive thing because one of the books that I finished is a new favorite. Maybe it'll surprise you, maybe it won't. I don't know. It did surprise me in a very pleasant way. But first up, we have a couple little announcements and then we'll get going from there. First up, we do have a new patron to welcome to the channel. We have Marisol. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I apologize if I didn't. We also did have quite a few members who are free members in my Patreon, and I just wanted to remind people of that. I have two options for people who aren't sure if they can commit to Patreon or want to check it out first. First, there is always the option to follow my Patreon for free. I still put most announcements about like Etsy sales, upcoming live shows, when I have author interviews coming. All of those things get announced in my Patreon first, and those announcements are available to anyone who's following me there. Another good place is to be, of course, subscribed to the YouTube channel, which look at this. We'll get into this in a second about where this came from and everything, but like now I can just like subscribe. Oh, it's so cute. Anyway, so you can just be following my Patreon and you're considered like a free member then. Then there's also the option where you can actually do a free trial of a membership or of a Patreon. And it is at the $7 level is where you can have a free trial, and that gets you access to all of the previous exclusive reviews that I've done, as well as you get to vote on them. Like I have a new vote that will be going up tomorrow for which book I'm reading in March. And as a free member, or as a trial member, you're able to check those out. So just a little plug to remind you of those. All of it does help out. Taxes were just due on Monday and I had to pay that bill. So any support to the channel is definitely welcome for sure. And so yeah, I wanted to say thank you to Marisol and thank you to all of the new free members who are checking it out. I hope you will eventually want to support me there at a level. It all means so much to me. Then the couple other ways, like I said. So a couple things. I finally did a few new merch designs and I finally got in the first one. I have another one coming next week that'll show, but I did this cute little design that just says just one more chapter, and I picked this blue. I'm digging it. I think it looks really good with my hair color and everything, which I did finally touch up my hair. Look at that. It's purple all the way to the edge. Look at that. That's great. So yeah, this one is the girl in the butterflies and it says just one more chapter right there. I have this design with both like the white on a color and then there is one that has black on a color. And then there is also a design that is Book Dragon. There's a couple different designs that say like the Book Refuge. There's a design that says treat yourself, buy the book, or life is short, buy the damn book. Like those are a few different designs that are really fun. So you can check out. That is always actually linked in my video down there. My Teespring is linked there if you want to check that out. Do that. Then of course we always have the Etsy shop, which this weekend I do have a 25% off sale going because I dropped some new designs last week, which are so pretty. So I just did a few, but there's this really beautiful rainbow music notes, which I have this in pretty much all of the designs, right? So I have it in this size. I do have it in the indie size. I have it in the extra large size, and I still have one of the computer case sizes left. So you see this one actually will fit, hold on, let me do this. This will actually fit like a Chromebook or any device that these go up. It goes up to 13 by 10 is what fits in here. So, I mean, you could even do an extra large book in it if you want, but it is made for devices anyway. So yeah, we have it in this pretty design. Then there is still a few of this compass design left. I don't have a ton of this design left, but there are a few. And then I wanted to do just one like faith-based design. I know I do have a lot of Christians who subscribe to me as well. And so there is just a few of these. It says like faith, hope, and love in different colors. There's also some little hearts and like crosses on it if you want. So I have that in indie, Kindle, and then I do have one laptop case in that as well. Just thought I would mix it up, right? I like to have a little something for everyone. So everything in the store is 25% off right now. There's no coupon needed. Go ahead and check that out. 25% is pretty much like the best sale level that I can offer and still, you know, make a little money on those. But that's a great way to support me as well as get something for yourself. So, all right, enough of my promo up front. I know. Now let's talk about a couple cute things in the picture. First off, look at these adorable earrings. Look at this little cow. So my sister actually just left. She was here for the weekend, which that's part of the reason why I didn't read as many books this week, because I was preparing for my sister to come. And we went to this like vendor marketplace yesterday, which had a bunch of small businesses. Like I got a new ring. It's hard to tell what's on it, but it's just these little flower things. So I used to have a just sterling silver flat ring that I wore for 15 years. Okay, for 15 years. And a couple of years ago when I started losing weight, I would have to move it to the different fingers, right? Because my hand sizes went down a lot. And I actually sadly lost it one day when I was out shopping. Taking clothes off and on, I lost it. So, you know, I wear different pretty rings in photos. I like wearing rings on my fingers. It makes me feel girly and dainty. And I've just never found a ring to really replace that, you know? So the rings that I wear in my videos, I usually only wear for the videos, or I wear them to church or whatever. But at this store, or at this shop, there was some small town artisans who like make a lot of these pieces. And so I found a new ring, which I love. And again, there are these little wood earrings. I have a few of these designs I'll be wearing over, but I do have a couple cowboy romances today. And I love these. These are actually supposed to be for like 4-H. There was ones with pink bows and ones with green bows. And I love it so much. I love it so much. My ears are a little bit angry because I just put these in, but I'm obsessed with those. So those are dangling around. Then look at this beautiful sign. Okay, so this was gifted to me from Danny Sue. She sent me a package all the way from the UK with, there was also a book in it, but I opened it and look at this lovely sign that she had made for me. I have wanted a sign that said the Book Refuge for ages, and I just haven't like decided what I want. I didn't know if I wanted to do like one of the like neon ones, or if I wanted to do just like a wooden sign. I didn't know. And she totally took it out of my hands, and I love it. This one, it looks like it was probably 3D printed, right? I'm assuming that's what it was, because it's very light and cute. And I was like, this is the perfect size. It can just fit right on my shelf behind me. You know, I can just tell people to subscribe to the channel. It'll be great. So Danny, thank you so much for doing that. Like, you just brought me so much joy. So that is everything I was going to say on the upfront. I know I had a lot to yak about, but as you'll see when we get into the books, I don't have too many books to talk about. So I was like, we'll just have a little bit of chitty chat, stuff that I would normally put in a vlog for my patrons. I was like, we'll just chat with you guys a little bit here. But let us go ahead and get into these new releases. And like I said, I'll talk about the books that I finished, and then I'll talk about what I'm currently reading, because I'm reading 2 really good ones, and we'll chat about where I'm at with them so far. So the first book that I finished is the one that was a favorite, and it is, I bet you can guess, it is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. So yes, this release is out. It came out just a couple days ago. I did do a pre-order of this one, so I do have the pretty spine. I guess these will like line up eventually. There'll be like a picture on the spines. So this is the first book in her new series, which will be Rose Hill. And, you know, I was nervous about it. I've shared that the last couple of Elsie Silvers didn't quite, you know, hold up as well for me. I still enjoyed myself. I don't have, like, bad things to say about her. They were just, like, weren't working for me the way I wanted them to, is what we'll say. And so I felt a little bit disappointed in, you know, things that felt kind of, you know, I've used it, and I'll say it, things that felt kind of like empty spice to me, or felt like there were certain sexual things the couples were doing just because they would sell well or make for good blurbs and stuff like that. And again, that is just me projecting. That isn't 1000% being like, that's what happened, because I'm not the author. But as a reader and a reviewer, I do get to judge that, right? So I was able to get an e-arc. This is, like I said, my pre-order that I did. Periwinkle Pony is who's doing her arcs now. And I was lucky enough to get picked for an e-arc from them. And I did put off reading it for a while because I was nervous. And I shouldn't have done that, not only because I ended up loving it, but also because, you know, I started seeing how much everyone else was loving it. And that can be just as much of a deterrent to me as if, you know, anything else, right? It gets in our heads. But I was immediately really into this story. You know, I knew I was going to be excited. You know, I was already really interested in it. We saw a little bit of Ford in Hopeless, you know, and we know that he is Willa's brother. And so there was going to be some good stuff about him. Now, another thing I was going to show. So this beautifully actually has a map inside of it. So we can see that if you look here, we can see Chestnut Springs is over here and Rose Hill is here. So, you know, Willa isn't too far away from her brother at all. And Rose Hill is actually where they grew up. And he is the son of a rock star. And, you know, Willa, she had worked at one of his like bars right before she became the wonderful nanny to Cade, right? So this series also appears, and again, this is me projecting. I believe this is going to be a series of single dads. And I know that that's not going to be for everyone. I have heard you in the comments who are tired of single dads and are tired of kids being in books all the time. And I've also said, I don't feel that way. I really, really love single parents. I love kids in books. That's not something I always cared about, but I do. So for those of you who don't, there'll be a time. This will pass. There'll be other ones, right? But for this one, the way that Ford becomes a dad is very interesting to this. So he has this girl show up and he finds out that he has a 12-year-old girl. Now, the way that he has this 12-year-old girl, and I mean, I'll just tell you because we find out right away, he actually donated sperm when he was, I think he was in college is where he was, because his dad was trying to teach him responsibility with money, right? Because their family is very well off and he didn't want his kid to be a little shit, right? So he was like, if you want to go to this concert you want to go to, you need to earn the money. And so to get that, he actually donated sperm. Now, is it a bit of a logic jump that she would end up reaching out to him? Yes. And there are plenty of people's reviews who feel like that's just too wild. However, I'm going to tell you why I liked it and why I thought it was cute. But anyway, for reasons of the story, this girl, her parent, like one of her parents has died, her dad has died, her adoptive father has died, which I guess it wouldn't be adoptive father because she was, like he had donated sperm, but it was their child because I believe the father had like a long-term illness or something like that. And so they had a baby through, you know, sperm donation and then having their child. But this father has died and her mother is having some mental health issues. Now, her mom is not abusing her. Her mom is not, you know, but her mom is in a heavy place. And this 12-year-old girl, which I can't remember her name right off the top of my head, that's Cora. Is it Cora? I think it's Cora. For some way, somehow, she ends up needing help and she's looked up who her father is and she finds out and she shows up at his door. So that's enough talking about how it happens. You can read how it plays out, of course, in the book. But I'm going to tell you why I liked it, even though it is a logic jump, okay? And it set this story up for success, and I'll tell you why, right? The reason why this set it up for success for me is because we now have Ford, who is a single dad, basically. I mean, not 100% a dad, because he, you know, didn't plan for this kid. He didn't, like, know about her. You know, in his mind, it's like he knew he donated sperm all that time ago, but it was like, these children won't, you know, mean anything to me. Like, they're not going to be mine. But again, that wasn't in a callous way. It was like he was doing it for money. He was a kid. That's what, you know, plenty of people do it. And you know what? Thank goodness that they do, so that people can have babies who wouldn't any other way. But what it does for this story is that it allows him to be a single dad without baby mama drama, right? It isn't an ex-girlfriend. It isn't an ex-wife. It isn't a one-night stand. It isn't someone who was trying to catch a billionaire by, getting pregnant and then wanting a payout. Like, this was genuinely, Cora needs help. And when she finds out who her dad is and that he could possibly help, she reaches out. And Ford, even though he's completely overwhelmed by this, he does, okay? So that is our setup for Ford, right? I know, you're with Jenn. You're going to get more information than normal if you're here with me. But I have a feeling if you're watching this and you're unsure if you're going to like Wild Love, you want to know a little bit more about it than just what everyone else is saying, right? That's what I'm here for. If you want to read an Elsie Silver, you're going to go read it. You're not going to need to hear what I have to say, right? Anyway, so then we have Rose, who her brother is best friends with Ford when they were kids. They lived nearby, and they were what we would call kind of childhood enemies. And I very specifically mean childhood enemies because there was no huge grudge. There was no big hate. They teased each other. They played some pranks on each other. They gave each other a tough time. It wasn't like he was cruel. He didn't pull pranks on her. He wasn't her bully. So even though this is called like childhood friends to lovers, like there's a really cute one. We'll see if I find the graphic. I probably won't. But one of the tarot cards that Jenn is making for this series shows like childhood friends to lovers. And it's him like pulling her ponytail, like that kind of thing. But anyway, Rosie is working for this, I believe it's like I don't know if it's a construction company or what kind of job it is, but she's working for this company and her boss makes a pass at her, touches her inappropriately. And before she gets a chance to talk to HR, he actually talks to HR and she is asked to leave. So now she's jobless. She's embarrassed about what happened, even though she shouldn't need to be. And she does also have a boyfriend in the beginning, but they're kind of just together by default type of boyfriend. So she decides to go stay with her brother, who is also a single dad. Her brother is West, and she decides to go stay with him. And he is basically neighbors with Ford. And Ford is trying to start a new record label. And so he's trying to build a recording studio and he needs an assistant. And so Rosie becomes his assistant and they are now working in his new building that's being put together. Their desks are across from each other and we are set up for a great time. Okay, so that is the setup of this. It is, like I said, childhood friends to childhood enemies to lovers, brother's best friend, small town romance, office romance, and she just razzes him all the time. Like, they have this teasing banter that they're always picking on each other, but also they would be completely lost and sad if they didn't have this banter and back and forth. So it's that kind of thing of you live for the teasing. I have friends like that all we do is give each other shit and they're the sweetest person ever. But it's very clear that for Ford, a lot of the reason why he's been this way and kind of teased her is to keep her at a distance, because Ford has been pining for Rosie for a long time. There's a reason he doesn't have ex-wives and ex-girlfriends and any of those things. We'll just say that. So there's some absolutely swoony, pining things that this man does that just slayed me. There are some absolutely beautiful quotes in this. I just love how much he is obsessed over her, but also doesn't want to overwhelm her. He also, eventually knows about what happened to her at her previous job. So now he's her boss. He wants her to have a safe place to work. He wants her to feel safe in her small town. So he's like, I don't want to impose myself on her, even though it's so obvious that she likes him too, right? So yeah, there's just so many adorable moments in this book. There are so many sweet and touching moments, and it was funny. It had that right amount of banter that we love. And to top the cherry, for the cherry on top of it all, is that this was also a slow burn between these two. And there is a lot at stake. There's a lot of people that could be hurt, not just them if something went wrong. Also, Rosie is becoming close with his, long lost daughter. And so it's a delicate matter, a lot of this. And so I appreciated the slow build to this, the tension, the back and forth. And I think it's so interesting because my favorite book, of hers is Heartless. And that has the quickest spice of hers. It does. There's someone who does this page on Instagram. I can't remember the name of it, but they put like where spice happens in each chapter. And like Heartless has some of the quickest spice, but it all felt like it was building to that right away. And the type of sex that those two had and how it felt like it fit them. And the thing with Rosie and Ford is the way that it builds up and the way that you are just, if we had to wait one more page for them to finally do something, we were going to scream, right? Like that just felt so good, because then when they give in, you're like rooting for them so much, because you're like, yes, it isn't just like, oh, you guys are doing this already. Okay. You know, which can still work, but I don't know. It was just so beautiful. Do they all of a sudden go from 0 to 500 on the spot? Yes, they do. But it was very tempered with how long it took to get there. And then they know each other so well. They know so much about each other that once they do start having sex, you are like, yeah, they would go kind of hog wild. Like, it's okay, you know? So anyway, enough rambles about this. I gave this 6 stars. I really did. When I looked at it, I have very few nitpicks. One of the nitpicks, as I said, could be the disbelievability of how Cora comes into his life. But I really liked that. You know, so it's not really my nitpick. It might be a nitpick for other people. The third act conflict in it, there's no third act breakup. There's a bit of like a conflict. Is I think Rosie maybe speaking a little too pointedly on the state of what billionaires are. I just want to be clear, like, I don't have any problem with people having a problem with billionaire romance. Like, it's okay. But also, in a billionaire romance, like, can we not have a problem with billionaires in the billionaire romance? I don't know. It's just a thing for me of like, I wouldn't read billionaire romance if I didn't like it, if I didn't want the opulence, if I didn't want, you know, that he's able to whisk you away on a special type of date or do a thing with you. Not everyone wants to read that. Some people, they just can't look past the reality of it. They're uncomfortable by it, and that's okay, right? But I didn't need Rosie kind of like lecturing him about certain things. Because, you know, and this was something that Jess pointed out to me, and once she did, I was like, oh, dang it, I wish I didn't see that. But for me, it wasn't enough to fully take away from it. It's just I can acknowledge, I see what her point was with it, is, you know, Rosie kind of wags a finger, but when you look at the story, like, Ford lives a very humble life, except for a few areas, right? And he hasn't been born rich. Like, he's been rich his whole life, right? That's why the donating sperm was kind of like a thing that his dad was like, you need to learn some whatever. But anyway, plenty of things to love. We do get a cameo from Willow. We do get to see more of Ford's parents. We start getting introduced to more people in Rose Hill. Like I said, I believe this will be a single dad series, because it's already shared that Wild Eyes will be the next book, and that one is about West, so he's going to be the hero in Wild Eyes. I don't know quite who the heroine is. I'm sure it's said, but like I'm not really like trying to cheat and see who, well, like I'll wait to see who that one's about. And then there is actually this bowling league that they have put together, and it's all like single dad. So I think that's who the Rose Hill ones are going to be about. But yeah, I adored this. It's a 6 star. It absolutely was. It was so much fun, and it felt like the best of Elsie Silver, but even like better. Now, that doesn't mean that it usurps Heartless. Like, Heartless sits in a very special place for me, that like it just will. But it had a lot of the aspects of Heartless I loved, like the humor and the tension and the heroine who like picks at the grumpy hero, but it also was like a little more reserved, which is kind of where my taste is at right now, right? Okay, enough. See, I don't have a lot of books to talk about, but I have a lot to say, as usual. So this is definitely a recommendation. Okay, next up, we have another country type story. I told you I wore my little cows as a purpose for this. So next up, I read an arc of Bourbon Runaway by Walker Rose. So this is a new to me author. This is book 2 in a series though, but I was really intrigued by the tropes of this, so I did start with this book, but I will go back and read one of the other ones, especially because the way that this family dynamic was set up, I definitely have to know more about it. But in this one, it is a runaway bride romance. And it is a runaway bride, Summer, who is about to marry this absolute tool who none of her family told her who would be bad for her. And she kind of, it's something that gets brought up later. She's like, why didn't nobody warn me away from him? I just couldn't see it. And they're like, well, would you have listened? And she's like, if you guys had earnestly told me why you didn't like this guy, yeah, I would have listened to you. So it's a very interesting thing on it. Like, they thought she would be so pig-headed that she wouldn't listen to reason, and she's like, I was actually just looking for a reason for someone to get me. But anyway, in this story, we have Summer, and the beginning starts at her wedding, and she's just feeling like she absolutely shouldn't go through with this. She's looking at the wedding, and it's nothing that she wants. She's gonna be marrying this wealthy man. Her, soon-to-be mother-in-law planned all of it, picked. The only thing she got to pick was her dress. She didn't get to pick her sister's dresses. She didn't get to have I think she wanted a summer wedding, and she's getting married in February. Nothing is what she wanted it. And so it was just sad. It was sad to see. And then she goes to tell her prospective groom this, which I don't even remember the tool's name, whatever it is. And he actually slaps her and is like, bitch, get it together. You're not going to embarrass me. Go get ready to walk down the aisle to me. This is the first time he's hit her, but he has been controlling before. And luckily with her, she's like, excuse me? You just hit me and you think I'm still going to marry you? And he goes to hit her again. The nerve of this man. And just as he goes to hit her again, the man gets whacked with a cane. And this man who did the whacking, his name is Jonah. Now, Jonah had come to her wedding because he wanted to see her married off. And Jonah is actually her dead ex-boyfriend's brother. Okay? From high school. Okay? So he was 4 years older than her and his little brother. But she had dated his brother Eli, and he had died in an accident. So it's been, I think, 15 years, but he's always kind of kept an eye on her. Now, in the same accident, Jonah actually was injured. And when he woke up from the accident, his brother was dead, which is very sad. And he has severe injuries to a good portion of his body, and he needs to walk with a cane, a mobility aid when he needs to. And I'll tell you, I really liked that aspect. It was a good place to put it in. But anyway, he stops this man from hitting her and is like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? And this little pissant thinks he can just be like, mind your business. Like, this guy is gonna let that happen. Now, Summer is all of a sudden feeling very overwhelmed by all of this, and she has a big family, okay? Like I said, I don't even know the full scope of this. I know that her and her two sisters were adopted into a family that already had a bunch of siblings. So I think there's literally 6 or 7 in her family as a whole, including, her adopted siblings and her. And she's just like, I need to get out of here. And so she's like, Jonah, will you take me out of here? And he's like, where do you want to go? And she's like, I don't care, take me anywhere. And he's like, okay, we'll go to my cabin for the weekend. So literally one of her sisters brings her bag to her because she was all packed to go on her honeymoon. And so she gets her little carry-on and then gets in Jonah's truck and leaves and goes to his cabin, not in the mountains, but near the mountains. And then they get snowed in for a weekend at his place. Now, this first time they're snowed in, there's just a lot of it's pretty awkward. So Jonah actually makes custom furniture pieces, and so he has his shop, and that's where he basically is a recluse. He doesn't go anywhere. He feels the stares of people when he goes to town, when he has to use his cane, when they see the scars, that he feels a bit like a beast, right? But also he does have some tender feelings towards Summer. I mean, obviously, not only for that he went to this wedding to see her safely married off, but also he always kind of did like her a little bit, and that was never ever gonna happen when she was with his younger brother. And then when his brother died, there was no hope for them to be together. But they start slowly through this starting to reveal some things to each other, and then eventually it leads to, she's there for a couple days, goes home, and then there is another storm that's supposed to be coming in, and she's worried about him. or she comes up with an excuse. She doesn't want him to get scurvy during this snowstorm. So she goes and buys a bunch of fruit, buys a bunch of vegetables, and is going to go drop these off with him before this storm happens. Well, what happens? Number one, she scares the bejesus out of him. He's naked, just having gotten out of a shower. So we had a nice little moment like that. And then she isn't able to leave before the snowstorm happens. So now we're snowed in again. That is right. This book is a double snowed in romance, okay? And this second time around, there's a lot more stuff that gets flushed out, more things that get said, and we're going to see where it's going to go with these two. Okay, so yeah, this was a new to me author. Like I said, I definitely will read more. I had a great time with this story. I actually gave this 5 stars. I really did. There are a few things about Jonah that were really tough, but they're supposed to be tough. The man has a lot of grief. He has some things hidden that we don't even fully know. There are some secrets about his little brother that he didn't know. And there's also some secrets that Summer is keeping about how she feels about Jonah. So yeah, this one, it hits all the things. We got a snowed in forced proximity. We got ex-boyfriend's brother, runaway bride, grumpy sunshine. Again, we have a disabled character. He does need his mobility aid really for a lot of things. Uneven ground. If he's been doing too much, he gets like tight muscles. So that was really good to see in a character as well. I liked seeing that. So yeah, I gave this 5 stars. It was, for me, a 3 on the spice scale. And again, we do have some trigger warnings for the death of a sibling, as well as domestic violence, basically, or like abuse, but it's only really in the beginning when that asshole like hits her or whatever. So really enjoyed this one, and you can go and grab that one right now. And again, all the books that I'm talking about in this one will be out when you see this, so I'll have a link to them in my description. So you can go and snag that for yourself there. It'll be great. So onward to Forgive Me for My Sins by Angel Anders. So this is one that I saw pop up on, I think I got this from the author agency. I can't remember. That is one of the PR companies I shared about in my How to Get Free Books video, which you can check that out. I'll link that somewhere. That is it's a newer to me anyway, and I believe they're only a year old. I think I saw them just say it was their anniversary. Maybe I'm wrong. But one of these PR companies, I think it was just their year birthday, but they are one of the newer ones that I go to, and I love them. I've gotten a lot of my arcs recently from them because there are a lot of authors I've never tried before, and I'm loving them. But anyway, Forgive Me for My Sins is a priest romance. It does have cheating in it, which apparently I'm reading more of those lately. That is not normally Jen's thing, but we've been doing it a little bit lately. But this one worked for me, and it's because it does fit into some of my loopholes, okay? So in this story, we have Avery, who in the very first sentence of the book, right, she's discovered her husband cheating, okay? So that's the author giving us like an out in this situation. So a little backstory. Avery is an heiress herself. Her father left her quite a bit of money and some control in some of his businesses. Do I know exactly what those were? No, I don't. I didn't pay enough attention to some of those. I apologize. But so she already has money in her own right. She married this man who was quite a few years older than her. And of course, in the beginning, he was just so sweet to her, so good. And now, 3 years into their marriage, he is very dismissive of her. He cuts her down. He tells her she needs to lose weight. He says she's not pretty enough. Keep your roots done. Keep your nails done. Just all of these things. And she is tired of it, right? And the thing is, he might have got her as a trophy wife, but she's not poor and she's not stupid. So does she have to stay with a jackass? No, she doesn't. And then she catches him on camera fucking his assistant, and she's like, man, I'm done with this. So what does she do? She knows that, so her husband has a lot of connections and like social standing through his church, actually. And she doesn't, I don't think she always like goes with him. I can't remember how that setup was, but I know in the beginning of this book, she finds herself going to mass because she wants to, I think, kind of spy on some of her husband's like, again, I was a little bit fuzzy on why she ends up at this mass, but once she ends up at mass, okay, it happens to be the first time that Father Lachlan is speaking. So Father Lachlan has been a priest for, I think it's about 10 years. He became a priest after some sketchy things happened. So there is a bit of a remnant between, like, you know, if you think of Lessons in Sin by Pam Godwin, where like he had a dark past, and then also, I mean, even Priest by C.R. Simone, like that hero had a lot of guilt he was holding himself for. So Father Lachlan has just started in this parish, and he is of course extremely attractive, because of course the priest has to be so attractive, or why would we be tempted by them, right? And she, yeah, finds herself very drawn to him and thinks that he's just absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, she isn't immediately thinking that she wants to sleep with this priest, but she's like, wow, he's hot. I can't help it. And again, she wants to kind of integrate herself into her husband's like circle a little bit again, more so than she has been. And anyway, through this and that, she ends up being assigned to a charity event that the church is going to be doing, this gala to raise money, and she ends up being partnered with Father Lachlan for this. So this leads to a lot of her spending a lot of alone time with him, getting to know him more, and this will eventually lead to their affair. So I won't go into all the details of that part. Why I thought this was very unique and why I found myself just really drawn to this story, I think, would be the way that things play out once they start their affair. Because again, she is very close to ending things with her husband. She has her lawyer working on it. She's trying to make sure that her assets are okay. There's also a few other things she's discovered besides just him cheating on her that she wants to make sure is in a row. But it isn't this type of thing where you're ever worried she's still going to be with her husband. She isn't sleeping with her husband anymore, you know. So again, some of you have less problem with cheating than even I do, but I didn't have like any problems with this. I think some of you might have more of the issues with the taboo nature. I know for some of you, priest romances like aren't something that you can do, and I completely understand. My religion doesn't have any church leaders who have to remain like celibate or fully give themselves to God, so it's not something that I have as like a hang up for me, but I completely respect if you can, okay? But anyway, moving on with this, since we're in it. Once these two begin their affair, I liked how things progressed. This wasn't about being swamped in guilt, maybe the way that, like, let's be honest, in Priest, that's kind of the whole point of that one, is how much like Father Bell is feeling so guilty for wanting sex with this woman, and he just thinks that all these things. Father Lachlan, for him, he realized, he's like, well, if I'm attracted to this woman, that I'm willing, you know, if I'm being tempted, and again, he's not even blaming her for the temptation. This isn't that type of thing. This isn't like a heavy, like, honestly, this didn't feel overly dark. It was still taboo, and there are some like suspense elements, but this wasn't the kind of taboo where you're like, you know, it just didn't feel that way to me. Of course, again, personal opinion, because once he gives in, when both of them give in to this, he's like, well, if I'm being tempted to her, then I'm probably not meant to keep being a priest, right? Like, he's very practical about this, and I liked that. You know, it took it in a different direction of not having him just be like, I must stay away, or like, no. By the time he and her consummate their affair, he's like, well, I need, like, he's sure about her before they ever do that. Does that make sense? Like, he wasn't gonna risk, you know, how he felt if it wasn't gonna be more than that, right? And so that made this be an interesting one, because usually with priest romance, that is the point, is like, it's forbidden. Like, am I trying to keep my job? Am I like feeling guilty? Am I like, what is going on with that? So I found that very interesting. And then the rest of this book ends up being of like, how is she getting out of this marriage? What secrets is the husband keeping? And like I said, there's some suspense elements. So again, I told you a lot with that one, but I know that like priest romance can be a little bit harder for people to want to dive into. It is like one of those type of taboos that everyone can be of like legal age, and everything can be good, and it can still feel very naughty. And that's why it's a taboo one, right? So yeah, I end up giving this one 4 stars, because for all I said about it being like a bit simpler because of how he feels about her, because he feels about her, like, there's no third act breakup in this. There's none of that. So it meant that all of the tension and the drama came from like outside of them, and it was drawn out a bit too long, if that makes sense. So also, this is a debut book for Angel Anders, and for this being a debut story, also, so good. Like, if this is her beginning, I'm very excited for more, because this series is going to be called In the Carolinas. And I think I already know some of the people, because there was these group of friends that Lachlan had kind of before he became a priest, but he's still connected with some of them. Like, one of them is a hockey player and some of them are other business people. So this isn't going to be just a series of, you know, like priest romances. Obviously, it's going to be a series of different like forbidden relationships. Okay. So yeah, I enjoyed this a lot, and I gave it 4 stars. It was a 4 on the spice scale. We have a little bit of kinky in here. There's some impact play, some role playing, some dirty talk, a little bit of squirting happening. So there were some spicy bits once they got going with this one. And yeah, like I said, there is a trigger warning for cheating. There is cheating. If you have a problem with cheating in any kind, then, and that's a hard line, then it's a hard line, but it worked for me in this one. So yeah. All right, now the last one I want to talk about, that is one that I finished. I finished Slay King by Abby Glines. So this one should be coming out on, I think it comes out on Sunday, which is why I said it comes out tomorrow when I'm filming this one. This one is like part 2 to Slay, came out last month, and this is Slay King. And this is the second one in the Georgia Smoke series, which is also connected to Abby Glines' Southern Mafia books. So the first one did have like a slight cliffhanger, but I have to say, like, getting into this one, we basically wrap up that cliffhanger right away. And I did not love this one as much as the first one. So I was a bit actually disappointed. I was okay with how kind of like things played out between King and Rumor in the first one, because, you know, they were keeping some information away from her. They weren't fully telling her everything they knew about her husband and what was going on. And now, like, they're keeping her protected, keeping her secret. Like, it's okay, you know? But in this one, I feel like Abby Glines did not balance King's possessive side very well, okay? Y'all know I love a toucher and you die. I love an ultra possessive, like, alpha hero. But King was like, he was on crack with it, okay? He was so possessive of her. Like, there's a part in here where, like, she needs to see the doctor and get, like, a pap smear. And she's seeing the mob doctor, who, like, is the one that they take everyone to. And he wants to, like, beat up the doctor because he did a checkup, okay? Now, I guess that's supposed to be hot for some people, okay? I get it. But, like, she needed to see the doctor, all right? And then there's another time where she needs to see the doctor, and literally, like, King basically makes the guy have to, like, close his eyes while he's doing stuff almost. And I don't know. He just felt like a little bitch at a certain point where I'm like, dude, you've peed on her. You've licked her. She's hers. We get it. She needs to see the doctor for this thing. You know what I mean? It's that thing of just, like, you know, where it's like, you're hurting her. You're hurting her. Like, he had work to do. There were other people who needed to take care of her while he was doing things. And he would then threaten those men with bodily harm if, like, they would protect her too well. Like, I don't know. It just didn't make sense. You know, if you've read this, you tell me for other books are like this. I love a possessive man. He can make comments that, like, dude, don't be looking at my woman. But literally, if he's willing to beat up his brothers and fellow mafia men every time someone talks to her, he started to feel like he was going to be the type of man who was completely controlling of her. You know, where, like, she's not even allowed to, like, talk to a guy friend who's also in the mafia and is there with them without him wanting to, like, beat her and then, you know, give her a spanking for it later. It just was, he was exhausting me. He was exhausting me because every scene with him, he was screaming, she's mine, stay away. Like, every scene, there is stuff he's supposed to be doing. And one of the mafia bosses is like, I am going to kill you if you don't stop. And instead of him being like, he's like, she's my woman, don't touch her. They're like, we're all trying to help you protect her, but you're making it more difficult because you're a dipshit. Like, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. He was irrational. Like, it was stupid, okay? It was stupid that, like, you're not a mafia boss. You're one of the lackeys. Like, really. So you don't get to act like this because you're not the boss. In fact, you're making things difficult, right? If he'd been the mafia boss, I kind of can see how it works. But if you've read this, you'll know he's not the boss. He's on the totem pole. Like, the way he talks back to his grandma, the way he talks back to the boss, like, I was tired of it, okay? So I'm telling you the truth. I liked the first one because there was, like, some resisting, them trying to figure each other out. The second one, he just went off the rails to the point that he almost felt abusive. Like, he didn't do like abusive things to her, but the way he would threaten everyone else to the point where she's like, well, I feel like I shouldn't even talk to someone because you're going to hurt someone, right? So what happens in those scenarios normally, right? First, he's all about blaming the other people. Then eventually the man starts to blame the woman for people looking at her. You know what I mean? So anyway, we'll move along from this. This was an arc, right? So I didn't want to be bitchy about it, but I gave this one a 3.5 so that I could rate it. And I just didn't write a super long review because I knew I was going to gush about it here. I would still read other Abby Glines. I'm hoping she has other type of male characters instead of just one track. But I will give her another chance with either another book in this series because I'm liking some of the other characters we've met. But I don't know. I was a little uncomfortable by King in this one. And like in a mafia romance, y'all, I give a hero yards of latitude, okay? I give them miles of latitude. And in this one, I was like, dude, get your little shit together, okay? Okay. All right. So those are the books I read this week. Like I said, it wasn't a lot. That was, if you counted, that was only 4 books that I finished, right? Because it was a busy week of like working on Etsy projects and that. But I'll tell you the books that I'm reading in the middle of 3 different books right now. And I'm hoping this weekend to finish up some of those ones, right? Because I have some arcs due for these. So the main one that's taking me a while is I'm listening to Empire of the Damned. I am a good way into this one. And I want to catch up because I'm actually kind of buddy reading this with Sophie. We both love this series. And so we ended up kind of like chatting about it. And I was ahead of her, but then the last few days she got ahead of me. And so now I'm like, dang it, I want to catch up to her. So yeah, I'm kind of buddy reading this with her right now. But this is book 2 in, I mean, I guess, like, what did he even call the series? I actually don't know. But I'm listening to this one. These books are lovely. This is illustrated by Bon Orthwick. So there's these beautiful ones. There, of course, is the lovely end papers. And then this is like an illustrated book. Let me find a picture that's not a naughty one. They're not like erotic, but there are some that are like super intense. Let me see. Right. So like here's, like there are these illustrations throughout. There's at least like one every chapter. Sometimes there's even more. So I love listening along and then reading it. So I'm about at 40% into this one. It's a long one. Like I said, the audiobook is 35 hours and I'm on page 300 out of 700. So really enjoying this book, but it also is hard to read because I'm a romance reader and I don't know who's going to die and I don't know what's going to happen there. So it is like, it's difficult for me at the same time. So that's one. Then I did also start Just This Once by Lena Hendricks. That one comes out on Monday. So I do kind of need to prioritize that one. I need to get that done. But yesterday I did get Cage of Ice and Echoes. And y'all know how much I was just crazy for Hills of Shivers and Shadows, and our characters were left in a horrible cliffhanger, and I just needed to know what happened. So I did start this last night, and I actually read a good amount because this one is quite a bit shorter, and I think it makes sense because, again, if you have read Hills of Shivers and Shadows, there are 5 POVs in that book, and this one currently has less than that. Also, there was a lot of setup that had to happen in Hills of Shivers and Shadows. Like, there was just so much backstory. There was just so many parts of it. And now this one is really like, it's a survival story, plus another character as well, which I will not spoil that here. Next week, when I do my wrap-up, I'll do what I did with Hills of Shivers and Shadows and have a spoiler section for that, because I'm sure I'll need to talk about it. But that is what's kind of consuming me. So those are all the books I have read this week or am reading. I hope you still found some you want to try. Again, I'll have links to everything down below. Definitely check out what's in the Etsy shop this week. Check out my merch and everything. Thank you to Danny for the beautiful gift there. So thank you all for watching this. Y'all mean so much to me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.